From a parenting perspective, when you were a child, do you think that your parents were doing anything specifically or uniquely to develop that mindset?
You know,
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the MTNTOUGH Podcast. I am your host, Dustin Diefenderfer, and I'm so glad that you are here. We absolutely love seeing you dive back into these episodes week after week. And it is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest every single episode that helps you level up, that helps you add some tools to that mental fitness, that mental toughness toolbox. Shifting gears over to today's guest. On the show today, we have the Queen of Pain. That is her nickname, Rebecca Rusch. Rebecca is a 7-time world champion across multiple disciplines, including mountain biking, adventure racing, gravel cycling, and in addition to that, she has pioneered many other sports and is always pushing the limits in many different endurance capacities. She's also a hunter. She also lives in the Rocky Mountain West. So this is going to be a fun conversation. So please stand by for the Queen of Pain, Rebecca Rusch. Mountain biking has been like a huge part of your career and your resume, but it is obviously like much more diversified than that with the things that you've done. It looks like you've done a lot of interesting events that required like extra training, and definitely just from like reading a lot about you, there definitely is this trait that seems to be accurate where like you always want that next challenge, that new challenge, something different, which a lot of people shy away from because when you do that, you have to learn a lot of new things and often learn things that you're not the best at until you get practice at them, such as like switching from mountain biking to Iditarod racing, completely different skill set. But I guess to start, I was curious, do you feel like that started in your childhood? Was your childhood a direct correlator to kind of your mindset and your mental toughness?
yeah, I love that question because I've been an athlete my whole life, since I was a kid. My first formal sports were cross country running in high school, and found this like adventure and community. And so yeah, I've been a runner, rock climber, paddler, adventure racer, mountain biker, skier. I'm really like an all around outdoor athlete, and I've competed in a lot of different fields. But quite honestly, the through line is me as a kid wanting to like camp in the backyard. And my mom took us to national parks, and we'd climb all over the rocks and go exploring. And so it's really a curiosity for being in the outdoors that has been the through line through my whole life, and being able to take sports into it. It's just kind of, yeah, curious explorer. And that, when people ask, well, why have you changed sports and transitioned and done so many things? It's because, I want to see what's around the next corner, over the next mountain. And outdoor movement has really kind of been my education, and it's become my profession. And now, my mission to get more people outside because it's the greatest teacher of them all. But yeah, there's been a curiosity. There's definitely an intensity to me that was, striving to do stuff that nobody's ever done. And that shifted a little bit now. I'm proud of those podiums and those accolades, but they're kind of a springboard towards, moving from being a competition athlete to being a lifelong athlete. And the question of like, when are you going to retire comes up all the time. And it's like, well, I'm never going to retire from sport. I'm never going to retire from being in the mountains.
Yeah.
It just may be a different format of how my paycheck is like comes in and that kind of stuff.
The mountains are so special, and the unknown of them definitely creates a lot of life skills that apply to so many different areas. That not only do you get the vitamin D in the nature and the outdoors, but when unknown events are thrown your way and you have to handle them, that is really like a mindset builder that you can't get indoors all the time.
Yeah, I think if I think back to like being a kid and a runner in high school, it's like I joined the cross country running team, but part of that you had to also run track in the other seasons. And they're both running, but it was such a glaring difference for me of like running the mile on the track. You know exactly, you're up making left turns the whole time. You know exactly what your split is supposed to be for each lap, and there's not really any variety to it versus cross country. Every course was different. You don't know what's around the next corner. There's mud, there's trees, there's like, you've got to be, I guess, more mentally engaged, in my opinion, because you're decision making on the fly, even like where you put your feet and how you place your feet. And to me, that's always resonated so much more. It's why I love rock climbing because it's so cerebral, and why I
Mm,
like mountain biking more than road riding is because your brain is engaged. Your brain is involved with like, do I go here? Do I go there? Should I move my weight this way or that way? And so yeah, I mean, I work out in a gym and I do some, road riding and running on a treadmill, but for me, that is a means to an end. It's a weight, it's a physical, workout, but it's not the whole body, mind, body, spirit workout that I get when I'm outside on the dirt.
yeah. From a parenting perspective, when you were a child, do you think that your parents were doing anything specifically or uniquely to develop that mindset?
We grew up, my sister and I, my dad was shot down in the Vietnam War, when I was 3 years old, and he didn't come home. And so we were raised with a single mom. She had to work. She worked her butt off. And quite honestly, my sister and I had to fend for ourselves a lot. And so we were home alone. And, she was home on the weekends and stuff, but, she did her best, but she wasn't there. And my dad wasn't there. And so a lot of what we had to develop had to sort of be figured out
Hmm.
on our own. And, we learned obviously independence, resilience, figuring things out, but we also had to, I lacked community. And that's what I found as a young girl with cross country running is I found like a group of friends and
Yeah.
like peers and people to hang out with. And so I really feel like sport gave me a lot of education at a really young time in my life. And I encourage all parents to get their kids into sports, no matter what it is, because it provides so much structure and support that young people need,
Hmm.
especially at that age. And I mean, we need it for our whole lives. When people ask me now, even, I'm 56 and like, well, how do you stay motivated? I'm like, I call up my friends and I go on a bike ride. We need that no matter what age we are. And
Yeah.
even as adults, we need the same things we needed as kids, which is community and support and structure and play and fun and challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. The Mountain Tough for years, we've been kind of preaching this philosophy that anyone who is out there that's struggling at all, whether it's struggles with their work life, their family life, their home life. Sometimes you see, struggles with alcoholism, depression, anxiety, and there's more of those struggles now than ever before, which is really fascinating because we're the most well off as a globe than we've ever been before. I mean, there's more comfort, more resources, more food, better food, more technology than ever before, but the symptoms of struggle are higher than ever before in the most well off time in history, which is really fascinating because it's the comfort of life that is not fixing the problem. And with Mountain Tough, we know just from our backcountry hunting experience that what can help with many of those symptoms we're seeing is really difficult adversity in really unknown environments. And when you add the outdoors to that equation, kind of all these magical ingredients really start to create a life transformation. And so we always tell people that if you're struggling at all with anything, or if you're just even in a rut, if you can do some sort of outdoor activity for multiple days in the backcountry without your phone, we can guarantee that you're going to come back a better person with a lot more clarity and a lot less struggle. There's just something so special about the outdoors and so special about unplugging from technology and then if you add some adversity to that, like if you push your limits a little bit further than you thought you could, I mean, you really can start stacking some positive changes really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally aligned with that. And what I love right now is that science is actually catching up to sort of prove why nature is good for us and proving, what effects exercise has on the brain and community has on the brain. And so it's kind of interesting that, these ancient things that we've known forever, Thoreau wrote about being in nature, like these aren't new things, but science is now helping people grasp that, like, yeah, this is really good for me. I may not be able to see what's going on in my brain and my body, but science is able to measure it. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, if we want our magic pill for our mental health and physical health crisis that the world, especially America, is going through, well, there is a magic pill. It's
Mm-hmm.
movement in nature, and we have it, and we have access to it. And so it's kind of cool that, Mountain Tough is showing people that way, because I think there is a lot of intimidation, for people who are outdoors people and comfortable out there camping and like being without your cell phone. That can be really intimidating for somebody who doesn't live like in the places that we live and doesn't live naturally in that environment. So I think it's really important to take people into nature and show them. There's a really cool study that my friend Stacy Bear, he's an Afghanistan veteran, and he suffered from a lot of mental health issues when he came home, and he found nature and found rock climbing, and
Mm.
he was part of some really cool studies with Dacher Keltner to basically show that being out in the woods, the mental health benefits of being out in the woods. And they did a really cool study with a bunch of kids, urban kids, and they went and they camped for one night or two nights. It was something pretty minimal and pretty small, and they were able to record that the benefits lasted up to 2 weeks for these
Wow.
kids.
Wow.
And yeah, I'll find the study and we can link it in the show notes. But I love stories like that because we all know it. We feel it when we're out there and we come back and we're like, wow, that was really amazing. But like, how do I bring that into my everyday life? But you see that kind of science and you're like, you don't have to be doing it every day. You don't have to move to Montana or Idaho or move out into the wilderness.
Yeah,
But having a little nature and movement, once a week, is going to carry you through the week. As far as mental and physical health benefits.
for sure. Yeah, I'm feeling it right now. We just did a father-daughter Alaska fly-in drop camp, do-it-yourself caribou hunt,
So cool.
and my daughter,
How old's your daughter?
she just turned 13.
Nice.
So she just turned 13 in July, and we were 140 miles from any structure. So there wasn't even like a cabin or a shack in a 140-mile radius of where we were at, over the Brooks Range up in the Arctic Circle. And we were there for about 11 days. And it just really highlighted a lot for me. It highlighted there's a lot of beauty that starts to happen when like your main focus of the day is just food, water, and shelter.
Mm.
When that's all you're really focused on, the kind of clarity of your life changes. And then you also get a lot of just the calmness and the reduced anxiety because you're not busy. You're not in this pursuit of busyness that can happen at home. Plus you're getting kind of that outdoors experience certainly every day with the vitamin D, the fresh air, the movement. But I always really notice the re-entry feeling when you come back home. And when you come back home, there is this re-entry feeling where you do want to maintain onto those endorphins of the outdoors as long as you can while reintegrating into society. So I love what you're talking about is like, instead of going from a trip to reentry and struggling through that, how do we apply these principles on a more, routine rhythm? One of the keys to maximizing your workout is to make sure that you're eating clean and putting the right fuel in your body. Mountain Tough has preached this since the beginning. You're also seeing a shift right now nationally where we're calling out hidden additives, hidden substances in our food. As a hunter, when you process your own meat, you control everything. No additives, no shortcuts, no compromises. Just clean fuel built for peak performance. My family has been processing our own wild game for years using field-tested, hardcore processing equipment from the team over at Meat. Meat offers world-class grinders, stuffers, slicers, everything you need to turn your wild game into clean, high-octane fuel. No gimmicks, just high-quality tools that get the job done, and they're backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Take control of your life. Take control of your health. Click the link in the podcast description below to claim your special offer from Meat and start fueling the right way today.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on something that about your Alaska trip. Well, one thing, the only thing I'd be afraid of, but it's like the only thing that I cringe at with that kind of a trip is those, which are pretty legendary in the summer. Did you have issues with the mosquitoes?
Oh, the mosquitoes are insane. And I got that question a lot. It's funny because we were worried about that, and we were lucky that if the wind was blowing at all, they weren't bad. And then if it was cold and rainy at all, they weren't bad. But there was 2 times during our week where the sun was out and the wind stopped, and you were so surrounded by mosquitoes. They like dive bomb your ears and your eyes,
Oh,
and then your mouth. And so there was a few times that if you didn't get your like head net on fast enough, I mean,
yeah.
you were just like gagging on bugs.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that's some mountain toughness for sure. But I wanted to, you talked about in that trip something for you that I think is really important is focus. How you were saying, all of a sudden all the distractions of your life are removed from like internet, phone, feeding the dog, doing the laundry, whatever is in your life, and you
Yeah.
just had your mission at hand, food, water, shelter. And I do feel like that's a big, and science is proving this too. This is a big sort of reason, I think, for a lot of the mental health issues for us right now is that we no longer focus on the job at hand because we've got so much information coming at us digitally in a digital
Mm.
world that it's really rare that even people who do sports outside, they got a podcast in, they're like voice memoing, for
Yeah.
work stuff that they're remembering. And it's so rare that we bring singular focus, which I'll bring it back around again, which is why I love a technical sport like mountain biking or rock climbing or whitewater, is that you can't be unfocused. You can't be distracted. And it's so healthy for our minds to do an activity for half an hour a day or whatever where we are focused
Mm.
is physical activity. So even people in the gym, they're talking to their friends or listening to music, and I'm fine with all of that, but it's a rare opportunity when we do our activity and our movement. That's the opportunity for us to have a singular focus
Man.
on just walking your dog,
Yeah.
just going on a run. And it's why I rarely use headphones because even though I'm like, oh, I got to listen to the Mountain Tough podcast before I'm on it so that I can cram a few episodes. I'm like, no, I'm going to go for a run today. And then I'm going to be fresh for the podcast and our conversation. And actually, while I was running today, it was great. I ran with my dogs for an hour, and it was actually like thinking about our conversation and thinking about being outside. And it was really cool. Whereas if
Mm.
I'd been listening to an episode, that would have been fine too, but my brain would have been in a different state,
That's a
if that makes sense. So I think it's a way for people to bring some of those benefits of going on an amazing Alaska trip or whatever, to bring some of that into your daily life. It doesn't have to be that hard. It's like maybe just leave the headphones when you go on a run and just smell and look at the air and look at your dogs and take the input that's coming from nature instead of putting the technology input back into our head and our ears.
Yeah.
And for an hour a day, or maybe you do yoga and you're just doing yoga. You're not looking at your phone, not trying to do some other things. And so that feeling of focus, I think, is so critical for our brain health.
Yeah. I've felt it. That's such a good point because it is. I think it's harder than ever before to stay, focused on one thing and really get that project, execute on that project without being distracted. And
Yeah.
that makes us very ineffective, and it makes our brain very cluttered. A few years ago, I've talked about this a lot on the Mountain Tough podcast, but a few years ago, I really hurt my back doing some heavy squats. And through that journey, I looked at like a lot of different PT options. And then I got to a doctor's appointment at one point that said, you have to do surgery on this herniated disc in your low back, or you have to do yoga. And that was really interesting because like we're training hard every day at Mountain Tough, but as you mentioned, like the music is on. And then because it's my work environment too, I'm always kind of keeping an eye on things and wondering what's going on and what people are up to, and people are coming in and out. So
Yeah.
it's not that singular focus.
Yeah.
So I started doing yoga for my back, and it helped my back significantly. We've talked a lot about this on this show, but night and day there was this huge mental breakthrough because like when I went to yoga, these are hot yoga sessions here in Bozeman. What started happening is you have to be so plugged in to what is happening in that class that you can't daydream, you can't think about something else, or you're going to completely fall out of that flow and you're going to be 10 steps behind. And so it does bring you into that flow state that you are looking for, like while you're rock climbing or running, to where you're at a point where you can't be thinking about anything else, or you're
Yeah.
in, man, it was unreal how much that helped me mentally, almost just as much as it was helping me physically.
So, and you went to it because of an injury. Do you think you would have gone to that kind of a mindfulness focus, obviously it's a physical thing, especially hot yoga. Would you have gone if it weren't for the injury? Did
I,
you know, like you didn't even know what you were missing, kind of?
I don't think so. And I think that's a really good point because I did years of rock climbing and a lot of indoor rock climbing also. And my wife and I would rock climb about 3 days a week for 5 or 6 years. And I was getting that same mental health
Mm,
benefit back then from rock climbing, and then
yeah.
and then life just kind of took over, and kids came into our lives. And so without realizing it, I think that what happened is like I had unplugged some of those flow state moments out of my life without knowing that that is happening. And so
Mm,
I don't think I would have gone to yoga without that injury. And it's
yeah.
like, it's highly debatable that part of that injury was because of my mindset, because it's very like well known that scientifically, like stress can manifest in weird ways in our body, especially in our back. So I think that's an excellent question and point, because I think there are many people like me that don't know that maybe like their mental health isn't quite where it should be, with because these are things that can happen without us even realizing them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you make a super good point that we do carry stress and trauma and injury in our bodies in really, in places that we sort of, just pass them by. And oh, my shoulder's always kind of sore, but I'll just keep doing more shoulder presses and, it'll
Mm.
be fine. And eventually it starts to rear up. I had a interesting, well, the only big injury really in my entire career of 30 years as a professional athlete, was a few years ago. I had a mountain bike crash, really simple, and got a what they called a mild concussion, and I spent 3 years with ongoing long-term symptoms that spiraled down into depression. I stopped moving, I stopped exercising, and I got to tell you, like the downstream effects of me stopping exercising for the first time in my life, stopping moving,
Mm.
were horrific. You know, my relationship suffered, my work suffered, my sleep suffered, my joints got stiff. I felt old all of a sudden. My mental health really spiraled down. And it was, first it was concussion symptoms, but then it became a lot more of
Yeah,
like stored trauma and needing to get therapy and needing to get professional help from a concussion, which was
crazy.
really, really like I'm glad it happened because I learned so much about the brain and the nervous system and the whole interconnectedness of it. I thought I knew my body really well, and I do in a physical aspect, but on an emotional, spiritual, mindset aspect,
Mm.
when things aren't going well, like that was the first time in my life that I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I
Mm.
can't just muscle through this. You know, I don't know how to fix this. And
Yeah.
that was a real vulnerable point for me, but I'm glad it happened because it taught me so much about one, how I need to move for life, or I'm just going to feel terrible. And two, how we can't do it alone, no matter how strong of an athlete you are or hardcore you are. And I think the more hardcore you are, it's actually the harder to ask for help and to say, hey, I can't do this. Like, you're probably similar. You're a dad, you're a business owner, like, you take care of a lot of stuff.
Mm.
And it's hard for someone like us to be like, I can't do this. I'm failing. So it was a really big part of the last few years of me reshaping my business, my life, my mindset, my approach to health and wellness, and really bring that to other people. Because now I've sort of been on the side that people will be like, you're a pro athlete. You don't know what it's like to not be motivated. You don't know what it's like to not be able to get out of bed. Well, now I do. And
Yeah.
I can really kind of understand how hard that can be and how lonely that can be.
Wow. Yeah, that is so helpful and so accurate. I mean, it is very, very difficult to ask for help, and it is also, I think, like what you went through is a really good lesson and kind of like understanding and the very kind of root of mindset and mental toughness, because mental toughness, a lot of times when people just hear that word, we always generally think about someone doing something crazy physically. And
Hmm.
so when you ask about mental toughness and talk about mental toughness, generally people's brain will go to an endurance athlete or an Olympic athlete or a fighter. You're thinking about this mindset that's pushing someone to the finish line. But really, there are these like extreme versions of mental toughness that re- require no physicality at all. So, like, what does someone do when they're facing like extreme adversity, when they can't move or they're not able to move?
Yeah.
That is like this whole other layer, this whole other level that you had the chance to experience.
Yeah, and I mean, like you, yoga and sitting still, like, and it's like practicing sitting still and meditation and journaling, those were really important tools, even though it felt like I was doing nothing. It felt like I was not being productive. But in hindsight, I can see that those kind of like pretty still activities were important for me
Mm.
to sort of round out my health in a more holistic way instead of just going and smashing more miles or like putting on a heavier backpack. That wasn't an option at that time. And so I had to choose a different route, which I pushed against for a while and then finally gave in because I was in a pretty dark place and like, okay, I'll do this concussion yoga stuff.
Mm.
I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you, I sort of found a lot of the tools that I didn't know I needed until I really needed them.
It's so interesting. Yeah, because
Yeah,
you would have never went there at all without that concussion.
yeah, it definitely opened up some doors, which I'm happy to say I'm kind of on the other side of it and getting back to a version, a different version of myself but the physical version is coming back, which is actually exciting and inspiring. And, it's hunting season here and I've got an elk tag I'm pretty excited about in our own backyard. And so, yeah, I'm starting to like the motivation again, which is super cool.
Yeah,
Because that's been for a while.
that's incredible. Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough Podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. Yeah, I love that because, at Mountain Tough, that has been one of our philosophies since the beginning, is this kind of analogy of what we really want people to focus on is this analogy of a bar stool. And so if you have a bar stool and that bar stool has 4 legs, we define it as like one leg is your physical toughness, one leg is your mental toughness, one leg is your nutritional health, and then one leg is spiritual. And so if you have that bar stool and it has those 4 legs, it needs to be able to handle weight. And so the weight of someone sitting on that bar stool in this analogy is like the stress and adversity that life is going to throw at everyone, and it's coming for all of us regardless of who we are. So we know there's going to be health crisis, there's going to be an injury, there's going to be financial crisis, there's going to be stuff going on in society. So there's always going to be big adversity that's coming our way. And to handle that weight, we can't just have one leg of that bar stool strong. And so if our physical leg is really, really strong, but we're weak spiritually or mentally, that bar stool is going to be more likely to collapse when we put weight on it. And you see this in all sorts of different scenarios. There's like people that are spiritually really, really strong, but physically really weak. That there's people that are complete beasts and meatheads in the gym, but mentally, they haven't read a book in 10 years. So you see all these different scenarios of where individuals aren't focusing holistically. And I think that the tendency that I would guess people like me and people like you fall into is we have focused quite a bit of our lives on the physical. And the physical, I believe, with individuals like us is like a performance based mindset thing, because of the performance. It feels really good when you do something giant, and then after you do something giant, you look for the next giant thing to do. And there's so much good in that. There's so much good in that from so many different directions. But like everything, like our greatest strength carries the biggest shadow. And I know like the biggest shadow for me is too much performance based identity. It can create kind of like some mental and spiritual crashes sometimes, because like sitting still and not doing something for me is extremely hard.
So how do you, I love this four-legged stool idea and like sort of the weight sitting on it, depending how big that weight is, if it's crushing or it's really light at sometimes. But I love that sort of pillar system. How did you, I'm curious on, how did you develop the areas that you feel like maybe weren't your strongest legs of the stool, and how did that come to you
I
as
think,
the concept?
yeah, I think some crashes sometimes um, have helped like me identify some of these areas in my life. Like the back injury into yoga. I still go to yoga several days a week now because that was probably 4 years ago now, but I'm going to yoga more for the mental than anything, I would say,
Mhm.
because like I know now that if I feel it, I see it, but like my family sees it. If I don't get that mental breakthrough like 3 or 4 days a week, like
Mhm.
like my demeanor and attitude change. And so now I know that I'm going there because if I go there, I can unplug from the rest of the world and get into that flow state for at least an hour. And I
Yeah.
know that that's going to have major differences. And if I miss a couple weeks, I know that that's going to set me up for some negative things. So I think it's a lot of just like trial and error that I've been through.
Yeah, and you see a place where you don't want to go back to, maybe where you're like, oh, I know if I don't do this, and I guess that's part of learning and growing and evolving as a human.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we're on a very we're aligned in those sorts of things and the legs of the stool. And I mean, if we go back to the focus, it's so easy to blow off, two or three legs of the stool and be like, "Ah, I don't have time. Well, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to do, journal. I don't have time to like sit and have a conversation with a friend." Like it's so easy to say we don't have time for those things, but the downstream effect is you lose your community, you lose your support system, you lose, parts of your body's not working that well. And what we know about injury, even if you have a like paper cut on your finger,
Mm.
that bugs you all day and it makes you like kind of a jerk and it makes you annoyed and it's this thing, that's nagging thing. So imagine if you've got a bigger injury, how much that is affecting the people around you, the people at work, the quality of your mindset. And so, yeah, if your body, I mean, I know we talked about physicality and we both love being there, but kind of what I saw with my concussion is if the body really is the gateway and physical health really is the gateway to all of these other things.
Hmm.
Because if the body isn't working and you can't move comfortably, you can't, pick up your kids or, you're not standing up straight, everything else in your mind is going to just be like, man, I got this nagging thing and it's just, I'm not happy.
So
And so
connected. Yeah.
keeping a healthy body, people ask me now, like, oh, what are you training for? You talked about these big audacious goals and things, and I haven't had one for a number of years. And it's come to the realization that like, I have put a goal on the calendar, which is cool, but it's come to the realization that like I'm training my why is to like feel good and to be productive in the rest of my life and to be good in my relationships. And if I'm physically healthy and moving, I can do those things
Mm.
more easily than if I'm not physically healthy. And like people are like, well, what is your why for training? And right now I'm getting back to training and it's that I want to be the kind of person that I respect. Like if I was outside looking at me it's not that I'm like doing this or that 3 days a week or 5 days a week. Is that if I looked at that, I'm like, oh, she's committed to her health, she's committed to her wellness, and it's not a selfish thing. It actually extends to everyone else around you. Kind of like you
Mm,
said about your yoga. Your family notices if you don't go,
yeah.
they're kind of like, you need to go to yoga. And I hear this all the time from athletes like, I'm a mom, I'm this, I'm that. Like, I'm a business owner. I don't have time to do my workout, because I'm taking care of all these other people. And but you're going to take care of the other people better. If you're the best version of yourself, you're actually going to be there for your kids, and focus when you're sitting at the dinner table or they need help with their homework. If
Hmm.
you take that hour for yourself, focus attention for yourself, you actually show up better in all the other places. But that's hard for people that are caregivers or business owners or parents to be like, no, I'm going to put myself first for an hour a day and then I'll come back to everybody else.
It's really fascinating because it is this balance in this spectrum. And quite honestly, like on this show and a lot of Mountain Tough engagements, we spend a tremendous amount of like time and focus and strategy thinking how we can communicate with people that just need to get moving. And
Yeah.
that's let's say that's like the left side of the spectrum, trying to get someone to train, trying to get someone in the outdoors, trying to get someone motivated to sign up for an event or sign up for a hunting trip because we know that that's going to lead to some consistency. We spend a lot of time on that. And then there's the other side of the spectrum, which I would say you spent a lot of your life on, and that is pushing really hard and grinding really hard all of the time.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm really similar to you, where we have to bring that back into balance a little bit without going too far left on the spectrum, which I don't think we will, but the balance is really connected into longevity, which I think is so accurate. I think what we're all really pursuing is longevity at some level, because we want to be able to have a high quality of movement. And if we have a high quality of movement, regardless of our age, we can have a high quality of life. And so if we really destroy our body in our 40s because we're pushing so hard, that is not going to be great for our quality of life in our 50s.
Yeah.
But the balance, for sure, you're spot on, is definitely connected to like the quality of our relationships and those that we love around us as well.
I talked to a friend. She's an extreme skier, mountain athlete, Michelle Parker. Amazing, amazing person. I just had her on my podcast, and we talked exactly about this balance, the word of balance. And she really has a cool analogy that I like. She's also a musician and plays music. And she's like, it's not balance. There is no balance. She's caring for her father right now who has dementia. She's a caregiver for him. She's a pro skier. She just got married. And she's like, it's not balance. She's like, if I take it in a musical sense, it's harmony, where you've got all these different parts and things are playing in all these parts of your life. And it's not one or the other, like a scale balancing. I'm going to either be fit or be with my family. It's
Hmm.
harmony, like a musical score where there's 4 or 5 or 6 different things all playing at the same time. And can you get that to sound good together? Can you get it to be in harmony? And I really love that, as opposed to balance, because balance makes me think something's got to go if I'm going to work on this, or I've got too much on this, I got to work on that. And so I really love the musical analogy and thinking about sometimes the horn section is really loud because they've got a solo, or,
Yeah.
sometimes the piano comes up or the guitar or whatever, but they're all still playing. They're all still there as part of your life. And all those different pieces of that musical score can be your family, your health, your job, your, you know, whatever, your spiritual work, your volunteerism. And they're all playing a part, and sometimes some is louder than the others, but they're all still there.
I
So
love
I
that.
kind of try to embrace that and think about what kind of a musical score am I writing? And is
Yeah.
it just like the drums are just like bah, or is it sounding really nice and is it in harmony?
Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code Mountain Tough, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com. That is really helpful, and I think that is a better way to define it for sure than balance, because it's not really balance. I think harmony is a much better way to look at it, because sometimes we have to have more guitar for certain reasons, but as long as we're paying attention to how it sounds, then we can still navigate that okay.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. Well,
I'm, yeah, I'm definitely going to think about that in my life. Like, what kind of music are we writing and playing together?
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really accurate, because I mean, we can't, like, I think about it a lot now with kids. For me, when I was doing more like endurance running before kids, I was doing a lot of endurance running, like going and running 3 or 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday was not a big deal. And then after kids, I was like, man, I feel a lot more selfish running 3 to 5 hours on a Saturday while my kids are at home.
Yeah.
And I think that that was like some of those like harmony type equations that I went through was, well, I still need to find a way to be an athlete and to find some things that I want to go after. But maybe I need to shift gears a little bit so that I'm not running so much that I'm away from my kids so much. And I think that that harmony is always kind of moving in different seasons of our life.
Yeah, yeah. Just like a training season, you can't go, periodization. You can't go full gas like every day or you'll injure yourself and blow yourself up. But you also can't not do any intensity or there's never any growth or improvement. So, I mean, I have this concept that I've developed. It's I call it the athlete operating system.
Yeah.
It's basically, a kind of a template of using the athlete lifestyle and mindset and applying those things to any goal that you're going after, any part of your life where, you get coaches, you get help, you have a training program, you have consistency, you have periodization of like some rest times, some hard times. And you get feedback, in statistics or however you're getting feedback so you can know if you're improving. And so that's a model that, being an athlete is what I know, but through the concussion process, I started to develop this and realize that like that is a known, proven performance model that has
Yeah.
worked forever for athletes. And it really does apply to everything that we're approaching, whether it's doing a podcast, whether it's raising kids.
Yeah.
There's like, you can take that model and apply it to almost anything.
That I love that. Yeah, because you have that consistency and you're getting small bits of focus on that project, week after week.
Yeah.
It's this has been a really fun conversation because I've been reviewing your resume, and your resume, is really wild with like 7-time world champion across multiple sports, Emmy award winning filmmaker, 2-time Hall of Fame inductee, mountain bike and gravel, tons of adventures, tons of expeditions, first time to ride the length of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, Kilimanjaro on a bike. So it's been very fun chatting with you after reading this because reading this, you would think that the conversation would have been a lot more like push, grind, 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 push, grind, grind, grind. But it's been really fascinating because obviously like you're thinking about things a little bit different now than maybe you were 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, and endurance sports, you know this from ultra running, it gives you a lot of time to think and be alone in your head. And a lot of the events I do are ultra endurance. And yeah, I'm out in Alaska or on the Ho Chi Minh Trail really thinking. And so while on the surface it seems like these gnarly physical exploits, there's a lot of emotional and spiritual aspect to the long rides. And the one ride that I'll point out in particular on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, that was 10 years ago. That's the film that we made called Blood Road, the Emmy award-winning film. But that ride really started a lot of this sort of internal exploration. And that ride was me going and riding the Ho Chi Minh Trail and finding the place where my dad was shot down,
Hmm.
just going to where he died and
Wow.
just seeing the country, meeting the people. And, that I was a month on the trail with a Vietnamese female cyclist, and and she didn't speak English.
Hmm.
We're like going through the woods with machetes. The trail is not really there. And, it was super hard physically, but quite honestly, that wasn't the challenging part. It was telling the story, journaling, being really emotional, doing interviews every day after the ride, and really kind of opening up internally about that ride experience. And that was really cool for me. And that was a decade ago, and it's sort of shaped,
Yeah.
instead of being this closed off athlete who's just in my head, I'm sort of like sharing a lot of course, my athletic experience and expertise, but also the emotional, the spiritual, the intellectual part of what goes on in somebody's head when they are out doing those things. So
Wow.
that was a really great catalyst, and people can find the film. It's a really cool film. You don't have to be a cyclist to enjoy it. It's kind of an adventure journey.
Yeah.
But that was a really important ride for me, and and I credit my dad. I feel like it was my dad fathering me and being like, come find me, come do this ride, and it's going to open up the next part of your career. And it really has.
That's amazing. That's incredible. It was really like sharpening that spiritual leg of that stool for
Yeah.
that like more holistic life.
But through the physical angle, I still went on this huge expedition bike ride, but went in a different way, and was open to a bit more than like, can I set a record? Can I do it faster than,
Yeah.
that wasn't it. It was, let's do it and see what happens. So slowing down, and actually at the end of the film, my teammate was slower than I was, and I actually thanked her at the end for slowing me down,
Hmm.
because if it weren't for her, I would have blasted through those countries and
Missed it.
just like done it as fast as I could, Rebecca style, and I would have missed so much by going too fast.
Yeah. Man, that's such a good lesson. That's incredible. And
Yeah,
I,
hope you'll watch the film. I can send it. Well, we can include the link, but yeah, I think you'd like it.
yeah, we'll include it for sure. And thanks so much for being here. I do want to keep us on time, but I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you jumping on, and love that you're next door in Idaho. And if you ever get over here, would love to get you into the lab and hang out some more.
Oh, that'd be so fun. That would be really fun to come. And thank you for getting people, into the mountains and into their bodies and into their minds. I think it's great. You're developing all those four-legged stools.
Thank you. What an awesome conversation with Rebecca. After the conversation, she texted over some pictures of her killing elk in Idaho off a mountain bike. So she is always getting after it, always doing some really amazing things. And remember, every single episode, we are looking for that golden nugget. What can we take away from this episode that we can apply to our lives right away? The big golden nugget for me with Rebecca was that analogy she used from her friend, that we should be looking for harmony, not life balance. And so life balance, as we talked about on the episode, is fairly unrealistic if you're trying to reach your goals. But harmony, like a band playing together, is probably a much better analogy. And so if the guitar and the drums and the lead vocalist are all doing things correctly, you do get the harmony of the band. And that's what we should be looking for when we are putting together our life balance, our family balance, time with our kids, and time in these endurance activities. We have to do it in a way that maintains harmony across all those different ecosystems. So a really great analogy, a great way to look at things. Thanks so much for being here. Love you guys, and we will see you on the next episode.